Hello? Hello?
No, sir.
Now you can see?
No, sir.
No. Yes. No, it's fine, right? Okay.
Yes.
So now we are in the fourth module actually. So fourth module is all about cloud architecture. So in that cloud architecture, basically what we'll be studying is like the cloud service models. That is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Okay, and in the previous sessions, I had given some demonstration of ESXi server and how to host the, how to create virtual machines, how to install ESXi server, and all those things. So that is an actually example for. Can you tell me that's an example for SAS, PAS, or IAS? Whatever I demonstrated the concepts using VMware. Tell me whether that's an example for infrastructure as a service or platform as a service.
Infrastructure. Yes.
Yes, it's an example for infrastructure as a service. See, basically here the infrastructure refers to maybe the network related services or storage related services, server related services. Okay, now what I demonstrated was server related services, isn't it? It was a server. So we considered one physical machine. Upon that, we installed ESXi. Then we created virtual machines. Upon that, we also installed guest operating system so now it is ready to host any applications, isn't it? So that means what we demonstrated was infrastructure as a service. Okay, that's one example. Then another example I'm going to show you is using Amazon AWS in one of the session, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. So the main difference between, so there also I'm going to show you infrastructure as a service. When you go for cloud actually, so now what I demonstrated virtualization, that is not cloud, that is purely virtualization. See, pure virtualization means it's all about how you do the setup. Say for example, when you're working for an private company, when you want to build your own virtualization mechanism, then how you will start from the scratch. So you'll buy the physical server, then you'll install some hypervisor, then you start creating the virtual machines. So to monitor all these things, you will install virtual center. Okay, then you'll install so many application. Okay, and you can migrate the applications. All those things you do. So that is practically you are doing within the organization. That's how every company will do. But apart from that, they also use third-party services like they will also use Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, Salesforce, and other clouds. Okay, okay. At the time, I'm going to show you when I demonstrate AWS. I'm going to show you how easy it is to access from the third-party cloud service providers. So just it will be everything GUI. Just you can go and select the product whatever you want. So whether you want so how many instances you want and how many CPUs you want. So just everything will be there. Everything is GUI. Okay, within no time it will happen. But what I demonstrated was how to build starting from the scratch. So when you become an admin in any company, okay, there will be two things. So as an admin, you are supposed to maintain the data center and you are supposed to build the infrastructure required for your employees. So that is a huge task. Okay, and that is what is important. Hey, anyone having a AWS account can easily watch one YouTube video and they can learn. But it is very difficult to build. See, if you are asked to build the setup, so that is really what is challenging. Okay, that we have done. Okay, now at least you got an idea. So, in case if you become an admin, if you are asked to configure a server, how you will start? Okay, so straight away you can start with one a physical machine and you can install one hypervisor, type one hypervisor, and you can start building upon it. Okay, that is virtual machines, then guest operating systems, then applications. Like that, you can start. Okay, so this is what an admin will do at L1 level and L2 level. At L1 level and L2 level, admins are supposed to do this basic setup. Okay, but they'll not install the virtual center. Okay, apart from virtual center, all other things what I have shown that they will be doing. Okay, along with that, so they may have to execute some simple commands. Okay, for monitoring purpose. Okay, today we'll start with so today we'll start with economics of scale. Okay, so before that, just we'll see what are the examples for IAS, SAS, and PAS. Okay, tell me a few examples for software as a service. Hello.
Amazon.
No, Amazon. No. So actually, when you look at any vendor, actually they are intended to provide one meaningful service. See, Amazon is intended at infrastructure as a service. Google is intended at platform as a service. Azure is intended at platform as a service. That doesn't mean that they'll also provide they don't provide a SaaS. They also provide SaaS, but they're not intended for that. Okay, so in that sense, Amazon is labeled for infrastructure as a service, and Google is labeled for platform as a service. Even the Microsoft is labeled for platform as a service. Why? Because see, Google is having the complete stack of tools required to develop the software. Okay, they have the platform, their own platform, that is Windows platform. You can use it, and they have the Microsoft Visual Studio. Okay, and they have the .NET framework. Using that, you can develop the applications, and they have IAS server. So that means they have the complete full stack of services, and they are also having suitable compilers, interpreters, runtime environment, whatever is required. Okay, until hosting and running your application. So therefore, so in that sense, Microsoft Azure is an example for platform as a service. Even the same thing with Google. Google is also having their own platform, their own SDK, software development kit. You have the restriction is that you are bound to use only the languages, tools, and technologies what Google provides. You cannot use something new of your choice. Okay, and you can host it in their own server, Google server. Okay, and they have Google file system, everything they have. Okay, and similarly, so Amazon is known for infrastructure based services. Say for example, Amazon EC2. Okay, what is EC2? Elastic Cloud Computing. E means elastic, C2 means double C, that is elastic cloud computing. So it is similar to your virtual machine instances. In virtualization, we are installing VMs, isn't it? So in that, so similarly, you need to select instances. We call it there. We call it as containers or instances. Okay. So one container or one instance is nothing but one virtual machine. So upon that, it is your choice. Whatever you want to install, whether you want to install um, Red Hat Linux, whether you want to install Ubuntu, you want to install Microsoft Windows, anything that you can install, and you can start hosting applications upon it. Okay. So like that, Amazon is intended to provide more infrastructure-based services. Okay. So we are talking about software as a service. Okay, you told Amazon that's a wrong example. Any other example now? Where you use software as a service? Google Docs. So Google Docs, just you are using it as a software. So without you having installing that Google Docs in your system, okay, still using the internet, you are using that Google Docs as a software, that is software as a service. Okay, and Microsoft Office 365, that is also similar to Google Docs. Okay, that's one example, software as a service. Okay, then examples for platform as a service. As I told, examples are Microsoft, Azure, and Google. So when I say platform as a service, it should provide the SDK to develop an application. So SDK includes programming language support, compiler support, and everything required to run to write the application and to run it. And also it should provide the platform where you can host the application. So that is also provided by Microsoft by using IIS server. You can host all your Microsoft based application is using IIS server. That is by default inbuilt with the Windows operating system. Okay, and you can if you are using the cloud, okay, you can launch it in public domain. Okay, so like that we have three services: infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and platform as a service. Okay, now further continuation is economics of cloud. Okay, so economics of cloud talks about how to build a cost effective cloud setup. Okay, when you say cost effective cloud setup, it is all about building the data centers. Okay, say for example, a very small company may have only one data center, and a medium sized organization may have two or three data centers, and a very big enterprise like Microsoft, IBM, TCS may have a number of data centers. Okay, so here, okay, so it's all about how efficiently and how cost effectively we can build the data centers. So the main drivers for cloud computing are economy of scale and simplicity of software delivery and its application. The biggest benefit of this phenomenon is financial, that is pay as you go model offered by cloud providers. So that means, see, before the existence of cloud, what people used to do in the organizations, they used to spend lot of money in building the data centers, and they used to invest lot of money to build the infrastructure. That is a physical infrastructure, so many servers, and a lot of expenditure was going to maintain the cooling facility, the diesel generator, it is the fuel expenditure, and the technical man force, that is the people used to work in shifts, three shifts per day, that is 8 hours. One person can work for 8 hours, that is industry standard. So that means per day we need to have three shifts. Okay, so that doesn't mean that now they don't have the data centers. Now also they have the data centers, but most of the things they are giving it for third party service. That means they are availing cloud services. Why? Because they can save a lot of space, can save a lot of energy, and they can save a lot of time and money also at the same time. Very importantly, they can save a lot of money. Okay, in particular, cloud allows reducing the capital costs associated to the IT infrastructure. See, capital, the meaning of capital cost is that, so capital cost includes basic infrastructure that you need to develop. So when I say capital, once you set up, you can use it for several years. Okay, say for example, once you purchase the space wherein you can host your servers, yes, you can use it for so many years. Okay, then once you build the infrastructures that you can use it for so many years. Say for example, infrastructure, so networking related infrastructure, and the servers, okay, and so on. But one thing you need to observe here is, so it is having depreciation. Say for example, this year, if you say for example, this year you'll buy one dedicated server whose price is 1 lakh rupees. In the second year also, its price won't be 1 lakh rupees. Why? Because so after 1 year, okay, one more high-end server will come, so that this server, okay, will face depreciation. So that is eliminating the lifetime cost. It is also called as depreciation. Okay, that means every year we need to reduce certain amount from the capital, so that because of the depreciation. Then replacing software licensing with subscriptions. So earlier companies, they used to buy the software licenses, say 1 year renewal, okay, or lifetime licensing. That is called subscription. Like that they used to do. But that is replaced with subscription. So with the cloud, you can subscribe, on a hourly basis, okay, on instance basis, on weekly basis, okay, like that. So depending upon your convenience. So later on I will talk about the pricing models. So at the time you will come to know what kind of pricing models are there in cloud. Okay, now, okay, it's all about subscription. So whether you want instance wise subscription, so there are certain services which are available on instance wise. Say for example, in AWS, if you want virtual machines, that is instance wise. Okay, so how many instances you want, and per each instance how many CPUs you want. So depending upon that, they will charge prices on hourly basis. Say for example, so if you buy one instance, only one CPU, okay, and 1 GB storage, so that is totally free. Okay, no charge for that. Instead of that, if you buy one instance, two CPUs, 5 GB, so you may have to pay, say for example, $0.5 per hour. Okay, that's how it is. The last point is cutting the maintenance and administrative costs of IT resources. As I told, so if any company, say if any large company, if they do not go for cloud-based services, so they have to have all the resources in their premises, and they have to invest huge on administrative and maintenance costs. Okay, then the IT infrastructure and software are capital assets to a company as they require this to continue the business. So I told very clearly that the meaning of capital means, so once you establish the setup, you can use it for so many years so that you can continue the business. So that is infrastructure. So infrastructure contains example the space and the hardware components, okay, and also the software components. Say if you buy one software, say if it is a lifelong subscription, you can use it for a very long time, okay. And if you buy one server or a router, you can use it for say approximately 3 to 5 years, okay. So IT infrastructure and software procurement applies not only to the IT companies, as it is important to maintain data and to automate few activities irrespective of type of company. So that means IT infrastructure and software procurement applies not only to the IT companies. That means you need not think that only IT companies will procure the softwares and they will be having their own data centers. So you take any company, they will be having data centers. Say for example, you take DMart, they're a huge company. It's a retail based company. Even they have the data center. Why? Because so they have to maintain their stock. They have to maintain the information about their vendors. Okay, so they have to have their own CRM. Isn't it? So therefore, so IT infrastructure is mandatory for any company. Okay, so to do that task, every company will be having the IT department, which will take care of all those things. So maybe like purchasing the software, renewal of the software, to have MOU with some company to avail IT services, or to maintain the data center. So all those things will be taken care by the IT department of a company. So before using the cloud services, large and medium-sized companies used to spend huge amount on data centers and software and maintenance tab. So now to overcome all these things, cloud is a better solution. And the cloud has three main pricing models. So the first main pricing model is called as tiered pricing model. So in case of tiered pricing model, services are provided in several tiers, each one providing a fixed computing specification. Okay, mark this word, fixed computing specification and service level. Hello. In tiered pricing model, the services are provided in several tiers. Please mute your microphone. Mute your microphone. Hello. Mute your microphone, please. Services are provided in several tiers, each one providing a fixed computing specification and service level agreement at specific price per unit. For example, Amazon EC2 uses this model. So that means in case of tiered pricing model, the resources are fixed. That means while availing the services itself, you are supposed to select, say for example, in case of Amazon EC2, how many virtual machines you want. That is how many containers or how many instances you want. Okay, instances or containers are nothing but virtual machines. Then for each virtual machine, how many CPUs you want. So that is fixed. Later you cannot change it. Okay, once you are opting for that service, later you cannot change it in case of Amazon EC2. Okay, such services will fall under tiered pricing models. So where the resources are fixed, they are not flexible. Okay, so if you want a few more, okay, that's a new one more that becomes one more subscription. Okay, so for each of the subscription, the services are fixed. Second pricing model is per unit pricing. Here, the revenue of the cloud is determined in terms of units of specific customizable resources. Okay, so underline the word units of specific customizable resources such as data transfer and memory allocation. So example is GoGrid uses to charge RAM usage per hour. Say for example, if you are using GoGrid, okay, say you want to run one complex simulation, so you want a lot of RAM support. So you can hire the RAM. Okay, so dynamically you can hire. Say for example, initially you will hire 8 GB RAM. So after some time, you will feel that that is not good enough. You need another 8 GB of RAM. So then you will add another 8 GB of RAM. So that means here in case of GoGrid, you are having an option wherein dynamically you can add the RAM. So it will be charged on hourly basis. Okay. The moment you are adding the RAM, from that point of time, it will charge on hourly basis. Okay. So that's the per unit pricing. And the last one is subscription based pricing. So this model is mostly used to avail software as a service on weekly basis, monthly basis, and so on. Okay, subscription means we see usually like it will be 1 week subscription, 1 month subscription.
ಏನು
So
ಎತ್ತಿ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ ನೀವು.
in companies usually, say when an engineer is working in a
ಮೀಟಿಂಗೇ
particular working on particular requirement,
ನಮ್ಮ ಜೊತೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾಳಲ್ವಾ
they'll develop software in terms of iteration, that is in terms of sprints. So usually the duration of one sprint is usually 15 days or 1
ಬಂದ
month.
ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ.
So if the sprint duration is 1 month, so then they can subscribe for a particular software for 1 month, because the duration of one sprint is 1 month. So that makes sense for them. Okay, that is subscription based pricing. So overall, we have three pricing models: tier based pricing, where where the each where the services are provided in several tiers, each one providing a fixed computing specification and service level agreement. That means once you select, so that is fixed, further you cannot change. Okay, if you want to add a few more to that, then you have to go for once again new subscription. So example for tiered pricing is EC2 Amazon Elastic Cloud Computing. So Amazon Elastic Cloud Computing is meant for hiring virtual instances, that is virtual machines from the Amazon cloud. So once you hire or once you go for opting of virtual machines from the Amazon AWS, upon that further you are supposed to select an appropriate operating system, even that is also available as part of EC2. So therefore EC2 provides two things: one is virtual machine, another one is the operating system. Okay, so after you availing that virtual machine and guest operating system, next it is up to you. So what you want to do with that? Then per unit pricing. So here, uh, in case of per unit pricing, user will be having the autonomy to flexibly decide how much resources they want. So for this, it will be charged on hourly basis. Then subscription based pricing, most of the times it is used for SaaS. Okay, and very rarely it is also used for PaaS and infrastructure as a service. But most of the times it is used for availing software as a service on weekly basis, monthly basis, and so on. Okay, and the last concept of this chapter is open challenges. So, what are the open challenges for cloud computing? So, the first challenge is cloud definition. So, actually, there are, if you look at Wikipedia, there is one definition. If you look at your textbook, there are two, three definitions. And if you look at any PPT, like from various authors, so there are various definitions, but definition can be anything. So, the overall purpose of cloud is to provide software and infrastructure and software and services. Okay, so what kind of services? Software as a service, platform as a services, and IA and infrastructure as a services. Very importantly, what kind of services means on-demand services. So that means cloud is aimed at providing on-demand services. So second one is cloud interoperability and standards. So what is the meaning of cloud interoperability? Say for example, if you take any company, say for example, if you take an example of IBM, okay, consider there is an engineer who is using IBM tools to develop the software, but at the same time, so he will avail the Amazon AWS service. So to host the application, let us assume he will opt for Amazon EC2. Now there is an issue that is interoperability issues. So that means, so it has to say the Amazon EC2, it is a product of Amazon, and whatever the engineer he has built the application, so he has used the IBM based tools. So that means it has to support that interoperability. For that, so cloud is having certain standards. Okay, so example open cloud manifesto, that is a standard. CCIF, that is cloud computing interoperability forum. So that means these are the standards which will give us the specification about when you are developing in cloud. Okay, when you are setting in cloud, what are the things that you have to follow? Okay, and when you are developing an application which is supposed to be hosted on cloud, what are the things that you have to follow? So that means for both the developers and the cloud vendors, it will give you certain specification about how to deal with it. Okay, and this overall concept is called as interoperability. So to realize this goal, cloud has to address a lot of interoperability issues in terms of supporting application program interfaces developed by various vendors. So vendor lock-in makes it very difficult to switch to another vendor for the same service. Okay, say for example, so today developer will go with Amazon AWS, okay, to avail virtual machine. So, so that doesn't mean that, okay, throughout his project he has to stick on to only that Amazon EC2. It is not like that. Somewhere if he feels that, so Microsoft provides better services than Amazon AWS. So after, okay, so after certain period of time, he can switch over to Amazon, so from Amazon to Microsoft Azure. So that means now here the issue is that now the IBM application should work efficiently on both Amazon AWS and also on Microsoft Azure. So that is called interoperability. Okay, that is one more challenge. That is we call it as open challenge, interoperability and standards. Then next is scalability and fault tolerance. See, we say whenever we say cloud is elastic. Okay, cloud is scalable, cloud is flexible. Okay, and beyond all these things, we should know that it is having the property of self-organizing. Okay, say for example, so you will go to Amazon portal. There you will select two instances of Amazon EC2, and with six CPUs and some 10 GB of storage will opt. So automatically that will be self-organized in the cloud data center. Okay, here the user is selecting, same thing will be automatically updated in the cloud data center. That is called as self-organizing property while providing on-demand scalable services. applications that are currently running can be migrated between different servers and also between different storages without any downtime. So that is called as fault tolerance. Okay, and another thing is another issue about fault tolerance is, say for example, so one of the VM goes down. Okay, so in the virtual center, admin will be taking certain steps so that automatically the application moves from one VM to another VM without, okay, any downtime. Okay, say for example, I have three VMs, VM1, VM2, VM3, and I have one Macintosh application running in VM1. So due to some issue, the virtual machine will crash. Okay, now the application is up and running. So immediately that will be sensed by the virtual center, and within no time, that application will be migrated from VM1 to VM2. That is called as fault tolerance and high availability. Okay, so without any downtime, so very swiftly that can be migrated from VM1 to VM2, so that user will not face any downtime. Okay, and the last thing is security, trust, and privacy. So that's one more challenge: security. See, cloud means always there is a threat. Why? Because it is someone else actually who is maintaining your data. So, and always we assume that so they may open and see all our data, but while signing the agreement, they'll be telling us that so even the, okay, the technical engineers, they cannot see, so it will be encrypted. You don't worry. Okay, there is a high level of security for your application, so we have to trust them. Okay, and always there is a privacy issue. Okay, since some third party is maintaining your data, so you don't feel that there is much privacy for your application, but it's a matter of trust and security. So therefore, these are the major obstacles for massive adoption of cloud computing, and the traditional cryptographic technologies are used to prevent data tampering and access to sensitive information. So that means they are relying on cryptography to ensure security, trust, and privacy. Okay, that's what they are telling. And the massive use of virtualization technologies exposes the existing system to new threats which previously were not considered applicable. Okay, so that means earlier in the earlier days, people were not using cloud computing, and as a result, there was no much issue about privacy. Since now we are opting for cloud computing, so obviously it's a major threat now. Okay, that's all. Okay, what else is there? Okay, last point. Organizational aspects. Okay, what are the organizational aspects? What are the challenges for any organization, especially when they are using the cloud computing? So, as an organization, they have to ask few questions to themselves. So, that is, what is the new role of IT department in an enterprise that completely or significantly relies on cloud? Okay, so that means, so when you are opting for cloud-based services from the third party, then you may be thinking, so then what is the role of IT? What they are doing when they have outsourced everything to cloud? So what they are doing? That is one more issue. Then the second that they need to ask themselves, because they may be spending a lot of money for the IT department as well. So there is a trade-off. So how much to be spent to IT department and how much to be spent for cloud service providers? And second question they need to address is, how will the compliance department perform its activity when there is a considerable lack of control over application workflow? The compliance department, it's actually the just like the service help desk. Okay, if there are any issues, they'll take it as an grievance and they'll work on it. Okay. So during the MOU, well, during the MOU between the cloud service vendor and the company, so they'll be telling so many things. Okay, our service will be like this. There will be continuity, very high availability, and if something goes wrong, okay, there will be a complaints department, so which has to take this that issue forward and they have to address it. Then what are the implications maybe political or legal, for organizations that lose control over some aspects of their services. Okay, that means if the cloud service provider is violating certain things, so how to take it forward, how to take that issue legally. Okay, that's the one more question they have to think as an organization before availing for cloud services. And the next last question is, what will be the perception of the end users of such services? Okay, that means when you are, say for example, if any company is availing for some cloud-based services, so what is their perception? That means, so they will be intending, say for example, see that a testing engineer may opt services which are intended at testing, and similarly, the developer may be availing the services which are software based, software as a service, okay, which are intended at supporting the software development. Okay, so like that, so different engineers may be availing different services, and what is their perception? Okay, that's another question as an organization they have to address. Okay, that's it for today. So through this, so we are finishing that chapter of cloud architecture. So in the cloud architecture, basically we study software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, then uh, cloud economics, then open challenges. So open challenges is a last concept. So here we are ending module number 4. So in the next week, so tomorrow we'll start module 5, and in the next week I'll give demonstration of AWS, how to use AWS, how to use EC2, especially Amazon EC2 I'll demonstrate, and also I'll demonstrate virtual center someday next week. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.